Welcome back to another episode of Game Time Discussions. I'm Cameron Selby. This is Emory Cuzzy. Now we're going to start getting into some of our draft rankings. Combine just ended this past weekend. It's time to start kind of breaking down the official Game Time Decisions first look positional rankings as we are starting to scout and get an idea of how this draft is going to shake out. We'll give you position videos for everybody. They'll be short and sweet to the point. But yeah, we're going to start on the defensive side. Emery's kind of going to be lead on this because he's been our main scout. But yeah, let's take it away.
Yeah, so what we're going to start with is some just like honorable mentions. Every position group that we did is going to have different amounts of players at it because we kind of how I looked at it was like, okay, I want guys that are going to be first 3-round guys to be noticed, because I don't think like there's going to be 15 guys that are ranked on the wide receiver positional rankings because they're so deep.
Have 15 in the first 50 picks.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to make sure we touch on everybody and make sure that, I'm not going to, if we did 10 for every position, well, the last linebacker of the 10 might be a 7th rounder or an undrafted free agent.
Well, we might not even see 10 centers drafted.
Exactly. So making sure that we get to the guys that are actually going to be picked on the first 2 days are going to get those types of deals that we kind of look at. That's kind of how we wanted to set it up to be. Right. So starting off, we're going to start with Maurice Fluafau out of Notre Dame. He was a guy. He's got a bunch of alignment versatility. He's a very fast, athletic player, but he definitely lacked production. And that was something that kind of stood out to me because he played close to 700 snaps this year. And I have the number here. He had 44 total tackles. That includes assists out of 700 plus snaps. So I think that for him, I just wanted to see more and to get on our list, get in the top 5. I needed that. So he was definitely a guy that I wanted a little bit more from. He's a big guy. He's going to be one of the earlier guys. I'm actually lower on him than I've seen on most draft boards and other people ranking. I've seen him first, which is just ridiculous to me because we have some ballers in this class. But there's just a few of them. And I don't know that I put him in that whole situation. So
okay, yeah. And then we got Tommy Eichenberg from Ohio State.
Yeah, Tommy Eichenberg. He was the linebacker of the year in the Big Ten. He is the old school 1990s, 1980s type of linebacker. He's there to fill the hole. He plays in the A's and B gaps, and that's it for the most part. He's not going to be your coverage guy. And that's actually why he's not as high on this list, because that's just not what the NFL is anymore. Right. We look for guys that fit the mold of be able to do everything, almost like safeties that play linebacker, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we talked about the other day. But teams need true linebackers on their teams to stop the run and be able to take on blocks. And he's a guy that can do that. He's got really good processing skills, high IQ on run plays. And in the pass, he's just not as athletic as you need him to be to get to those areas to make plays. So I think that, he probably won't ever be a 3-down linebacker at the next level. And that hurts his stock, because that's what you draft for. You draft for guys that can play every position, every play, versatile, multiple positions. So that's why he's on the honorable mentions list. But yeah, he's definitely a good player. He's going to be, one of those guys that if you watch his film, you're like, wow, I really like this guy. But then you're like, wait, how does he translate? So that's kind of where I'm at with him. But yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, and then wrapping up our honorable mentions, we got Nathaniel Watson, Mississippi State. I don't know much about him. Give us a little kind of tidbit of what to expect.
Well, if you watched any Mississippi State, which I know we don't really watch Mississippi State, he was the SEC Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. He had 137 total tackles. And the thing that really stood out to me about him is on all of those tackles, he had a 5.4 missed tackle rate. And I'm a big believer in, that is so important for a linebacker. Safeties, linebackers, they make a lot of tackles, open field tackles, things like that, especially in the day and age when running backs are so fast and athletic. You need guys that are able to get guys to the ground. And he just does that. He's always around the ball. At the Senior Bowl, I remember he made like 2 or 3 tackles in a row. And I was like, oh, I really got to look this guy up, And so he caught my eye because he's not the most athletic guy. He doesn't have necessarily good bend or anything like that. He's not the fastest guy, but he just knows how to find the ball, knows how to, he's a good football player. And sometimes that's more important when you get guys like that on your team,
Right.
So that's why I liked him. That's why he's up here. He's definitely lower on most people's boards. There's guys that aren't on this honorable mentions list that could have been talked about. J.D. Bertrand's is from Notre Dame also.
Mm-hmm.
There's some guys that obviously didn't make the list, but I thought Nathaniel Watson needed to be talked about.
Gotcha. So now we're going to move into our top 5 linebackers. We're going to go 5 to 1. We're going to start off with Cedric Gray out of North Carolina. Had a somewhat impressive combine athletically that I would have expected, but kind of break down a little bit what you saw in him and why he cracked the top 5.
Well, this top 5 is going to be full of ACC linebackers. And we talk about how the ACC was the lowest division in football of the Power 5s, now Power 4s. But with him, he's also one of those guys that's constantly around the ball. He had he had 10.1 tackles per game. And, just constantly making plays. Same thing with him about the Senior Bowl. You watched him at the Senior Bowl. He was one of the most talked about linebackers. He's not necessarily the biggest guy, or the most athletic guy. 6'1" and 1.5. But he's just kind of everywhere, and his age is really good. I mean, at less than 22 years old, that age on the screen is when the season actually starts.
Right.
So it's not necessarily how old he is right now. So being 21, almost 22 years old, that's really going to help him also. I think, that whole thing too is he's good in coverage. That's what sets him apart from some of the honorable mention guys. He's a little higher because of his ability in coverage. He had 5 sacks this year, things like that. He's definitely more athletic than I expected from what his combine showed, based on film. Mm-hmm. And in a down class overall, he was able to crack the top 5. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and moving on to number 4, we got Jeremiah Trotter. He's been a name that's really been, since he was a freshman, was a high-end prospect, and he's kind of slid a little bit, kind of high and low production. He doesn't have the ideal size, but he's young. He's very talented for a reason, but just kind of break down a little bit why he is where he is.
Well, I think the first thing to say is he might not even be the best linebacker on his own team. Barrett Carter was, the guy that stood next to him. And you look at the stats, and Jeremiah Trotter probably had the better stats overall. But he's not the off-ball linebacker. He's the in-the-box linebacker. And when he's 6 foot, 238, I kind of need him to be, the off-ball speed linebacker that you kind of expect. He had some of the worst combine numbers for the 3-cone and the shuttle. He didn't run the 40, and I have a feeling there's a reason he didn't do that. It was kind of one of those strategical things. He had a 7.14 3-cone, which is not good enough, especially for a linebacker, and a 4.4 shuttle. And those types of things you have to have, especially if you're going to be the in-box linebacker. You have to be able to laterally move. And those are the same things I saw in film. He lacked that ability. He didn't have the ability to move laterally, and it definitely hurts him. Now he is a productive linebacker, and that's why he's still so high on this list, because he was still able to make plays. But 16.1 missed tackle rate.
Yeah, you just expect better than that.
Yeah, especially from a guy that, we talk about all the time as like, oh, this is the next guy. well, that's not the next guy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I need something better than that for sure. He's been top 3 in almost every list that I've ever seen. I'm just not comfortable doing that because there are guys above him that don't miss tackles and are athletic and can do those things. And so he was a first team All-American. So
yeah. I mean, it just kind of feels like it's something along the lines of like you said, first team All-American. It feels like that's more name value than it is production.
Yeah.
And it seems like based on the combine, it seems like he's kind of trending a little down, whereas the other guys are kind of jumping up.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, so moving on, let's go into our top 3.
Yeah.
Let's start with Junior Colson out of Michigan. He was leading one of the highest rated defenses in football last year. I haven't seen much about him being a high-end prospect in the top 3. He's probably one that's jumped in your eyes. Tell me why that is.
Well, first off, he was probably if you look at him as like when he stands there and look in like you're standing in front of him, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's massive. Mm-hmm. Like he's swole, big guy. And then I'm like, okay, well, can he move? That's always the question because normally big, strong athletes, they can't move that well. That's why, this guy can move. I mean, he is fast. I wish he would have ran the 40 because if he would have ran the 40, I could have been like, look, it's right here. It's all right here because his 40 time will be better than anybody under him. It might not be as good as the top 2 guys because those guys are just elite talents. But yeah, that was something that really was cool.
It's very interesting. I'm not sure if there's some behind the scenes of the reason behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But typically you want to do the drills that you think that people won't expect you to do as well in and
right.
surprise them. Or, show off your skills.
Check the
box.
If
you already have that box, like you said, why not check it? And I see that obviously very good missed tackle rate, but he doesn't have the takeaways or the impact, sacks or
right.
stuff like that. So it's kind of like one of those that you're just hoping that he continues to develop into finding his way to be around the ball and make the right plays in the big moments. But yeah, like you said, athletically, he's got all the tools.
Well, also, he was on, the national champion team. Mm-hmm. They sent 18 players to the combine. On defense alone, there were guys that didn't go to the combine that are younger. Yeah, we talk about the corner, Will Johnson.
Yeah. True sophomore.
Yeah, like he was surrounded by so many good players. Sometimes you just don't have the same impact because of that. I do wish we would have seen more interceptions, more sacks, because 0 is not good enough. But at the same time, what he projects as to me and what I can see him as is very exciting. And that's something that's part of the reason why I think this is such a good
Do you
spot.
think at this point, are we saying in the draft range that we would kind of expect to be kind of in day 2 range now for these guys?
This is probably, I think Jeremiah Trotter is probably going to go over Junior Colson, but I think both of them are 3rd rounders.
Gotcha.
I think the next 2 are probably both 2nd round guys. Because of the lack of linebackers and teams are just going to have to take them.
Yeah, we just don't have a first round caliber guy. Obviously, I did know that, some of the first 2 or 3 names had a shot because we have him ranked higher than a consensus. Just seeing if you think that this is one of the steals that we'll come out with and be like, yeah, the biggest steal, or do you think he'll just kind of go right in the range that we'd expect?
Our number 1 overall guy?
No, we're talking about Colson.
Oh, I think with him, he will probably be a steal. He's one of the guys that I have as a dark horse to be the best linebacker in the class. Obviously, I have him higher projected than most people. He normally goes in the 4 to 5 for like for the rankings. But I mean, that's right in the ballpark, and he has the athleticism to be the number 1 overall linebacker if that happens. I just wish he would have ran.
Right. Yeah, and these guys have kind of gone back and forth. The final 2, we're going to start with Edgerrin Cooper at Texas A&M. I've seen a lot of lists with him as the number 1. This isn't making it seem like we're lower on him than others.
No.
It's just we higher on the other guy that we'll be talking about in a moment. But just walk me through Edgerrin Cooper and why he should be as high as he is.
Well, I think both of these guys that are coming up are 1A, 1B guys. I think that it's so close between the 2. I think that, watching the season, watching Senior Bowl, and watching the Combine all put together with the interviews and stuff, that's what put the other player above Edgerrin Cooper. But they're very close together. With Edgerrin Cooper, he is, how do I put this? He is like the hammer, right? He's the hammer. When you come through if you're a running back and you run into him, you feel it. You're going backwards.
Yeah, you're not falling forward.
And so that's always it's so cool to watch him play, because all of a sudden it's like he's shot out of a cannon. I mean, honestly, because he ran a 4.51, which is blazing speed for a linebacker. And when he gets there, it hurts. You can tell, like on film, he is there to just wallop you, and every play, which is why his 12.8% missed tackle rate so high. It has to do with the fact that he misses plays at times, just coming in full speed, hot, and just misses.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of we just talked about our top free agents, and we see former first round picks that are probably moving on to different teams, and a lot of it's because they never learned how to stop playing in one year and learn how to slow the game down and just kind of work around and become good in all facets. And so that's something that he probably needs to work on. But I mean, he was lights out all year, 8 sacks, one of the highest grades that we've seen in some time for linebacker in PFF. He deserves the number 1 ranking, but like you said, he's our 1B or 2, because we're not when we're doing these top 5, we're not gonna have the cop out of just doing ties.
Yeah, of course.
Like, no, you got to make some decisions. But moving into our number 1 prospect at the linebacker position, Payton Wilson. Obviously, like I said, Edgerrin Cooper is probably more so a consensus number 1. Payton Wilson is our number 1. Obviously, lights out performance at the Combine. He was one of the biggest winners. Dick Butkus Award winner, first team All-American. It's all there. The only thing that is really concerning about him and why he probably isn't a first-round pick is his age.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, just break down what you've seen in him and why he excites you so much.
I think with him, like, he's a first-round linebacker if he's 22. It's like that thing. And that's why, I think that's why Edgerrin Cooper is ahead of him, is just the age. Because there is no other reason. You cannot give another reason why he's above him. I mean, maybe you're like, he's a thudder, and you're going to running backs aren't going to fall for it. And that's the only reason you can come up with that he's better than Payton Wilson. Because he's not better than Payton Wilson at coverage. Because Payton Wilson's great in coverage. He has 3 interceptions. He has 6 sacks. He can rush the passer. He has 11.5 tackles per game, a 4.6 missed tackle rate. He's just great everywhere. And then he solidifies it. He says, I'm going to run a 4.43. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really, I wanted to make all the excuses to put Edgerrin Cooper above him. I really did. I wanted to make all the excuses. And then I was like, but I can't. Because at this point, he's done everything he needed to do to be the number 1 linebacker.
Right. And then with the one, red flag, so to speak, 24 years old, obviously not as big of a deal when you aren't a first-round pick.
Right.
What was the reason that he's coming out so late? Is it because of the injuries? Is it because, the COVID redshirt years? To give us a little bit more insight just so that people can be aware of why he's coming out so late.
So he tore his ACL, and then he also had a shoulder injury. Both of those this is his first season completely healthy. This last season was his first season completely healthy. And you see what he can do, what his top is, So I think that's big. I know that the age and the injuries are going to bring teams back, and they might go, Edgerrin Cooper might be the guy that goes first overall at this position. But it won't be because Edgerrin Cooper's better. It'll be because he's probably the safer pick. And I don't know if the NFL is made for safe anymore,
Right.
Like, Payton Wilson is going to be the guy that makes the most difference on a team. He'll be an off-ball linebacker. He can play in a 3-4. He can play in a 4-3. He could be a slot. He can help in the slot as a big nickel. He's so athletic at his size he can basically do anything.
Yeah, just regardless of the draft position that he's drafted, he's probably going to be, his name's going to be popping off left and right when we watch him on Sundays.
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as he stays healthy and these concerns that we have don't come to fruition, he will end up being the number one linebacker from this class. He just has to, stay healthy. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, at 24, when the season starts, he's got 6, 7, 8 years of good football or more if he plays at the level of the guys that deserve that many years in football. Mm-hmm. So that's how I look at it, for sure.
Gotcha. Well, that about wraps up our linebacker rankings. Obviously, it's a fluid list that once we see pro days towards the end of the year, we'll do an update early next month or even right before the draft for our final rankings at this position. But yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Go watch our other positional videos that we're going to be coming out in the near future, as well as the ones that have come out already. We've just come and completed the combine. We did a review of that. And then we also got other stuff with the NFL coming out. So please interact and engage with the content where you see fit. And again, we appreciate you guys stopping by.
Yeah, we went full speed ahead into this thing, We only started this thing, pretty recent. And at this point, we put out, 20-ish videos. Mm-hmm. And it's starting to roll. And this isn't our first time, though, ranking players. This isn't our first time doing mock drafts. So, of course, any analyst could be wrong, but I definitely think y'all should look into these guys and look at these stats and these things and compare it and see why other people aren't having these guys at the same spots that we are. But we appreciate y'all coming, and hopefully y'all likes, comment, subscribe to this video. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm cool with that. Tell me why I'm wrong, though, and tell me Edgerrin Cooper's number 1 for sure, or I shouldn't have had Jeremiah Trotter at 4. Maybe you like someone else in the top 5. So just, let us know how you feel, and we appreciate y'all for being here.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye.